10Ks to go then for the peloton, looking distinctly like a big sprint finish. Here are the point standings. We were saying this was the only competition that Roberto Heras didn't have a hold on this morning. Tour Uzoft at 64 points from Alessandro Petacchi. Denis Menchov on 45, showing his consistency, and also Roberto Heras on 43 and Bradley McGee on 42. Remember, points jerseys are not just for sprinters. We're always being told to mention this because many people, commentators included, do tend to focus on the fact that points jerseys are very often contested by, oops, dear oh dear, a little bit too tight, and I think that was Garcia Costa from Illes Paleas, just having to take a foot out of the of his clipless pedal there to get around that corner. Big concrete wall on the inside. We're often being told that, and as I say, commentators included, often focus on the fact that people who put their bid in for the points jersey are often sprinters. Well, that's the case because they're often weighted, the points in a competition are weighted to the flat stages so that you get some sort of sprint action towards the end for a jersey. But it's not all about that. There are points available on mountaintop finishes as well, and medium finishes. As in the Tour de France, they have 3 different types of points categories: for high mountains, for sprints, and for medium stages. The sprints get the bigger points, the mountains get the lower points, but it's all about consistency. The person who's over the line highest every day, each and every day, which is why you see Roberto Heras, Denis Menchov and Bradley McGee within the top 5 of the points competition. The 2 guys at the top, of course, Petacchi and Tour Uzoft sprinters. Paolo Bettini going on a little bit of a dig on this little tiny road here, and leaving everybody for dead, Sean. That's a great little move by Paolo Bettini on this tiny little rise, coming up in with about 8K to go. This is a typical sort of terrain that Bettini would attack in. It's a short, sharp little climb. It's not even categorized, and it's the sort of thing he could get away on and try and make an attack towards the end.
Yes, and the road has been quite narrow there. We've seen, the bunch going along and a number of tight corners, and but for Bettini here, like this little drag is quite short, so the advantage he's going to pull out is going to be, very little, and for him to stay out there, a lot of the sprinters from the sprinters teams up front, so Fassa Bortolo, of course, they have quite a number of rivals to the fore, and they will just take it up again at around the 8K. I think it's going to be impossible for him to pull out another advantage to hold on to the finish.
Nice to see him go on the attack, though. It's he likes giving it a little dig. Narrow road favouring him, though, Sean. I mean, difficult for people to sort of react straight away. You have to get 1s and 2s coming out to try and get back to him. Not going to get too far, but lovely to see him on the attack. First time we've really seen him on the attack. Got in a bit of a mix-up with sprinting the other day with Tom Bonan.
Yes, that's true. Well, of course, I think he's here to build on his fitness level. I think coming into this race wasn't in top shape at all, and he's here, of course, again. The World Championships is something for him that he will be preparing for here, and he's a rider who is always capable of pulling off a stage victory, because as we see him right now, he just goes in the attack, very aggressive in the final of a stage, and if he can get away with a number of riders, he can always win the sprint, because he is quite fast in a small group. He can win from a group of 6 or 8 riders and pull off a stage victory, but I don't think it's going to be for today.
No, not indeed for today, but that's Samuel Sanchez, I think, who's come out of the bunch to try and chase down Paolo Bettini, the Euskaltel rider. Just while we're watching Bettini being shut in, just one more thing on the just one more comment on the Cat and Fiddle Run from Brian Rourke's shop on October the 16th. If you are now looking at the forum, www.eurosport.com, all the details are up there. I'll bring some more details in tomorrow. 12 seconds Bettini has over Sanchez, who's chasing him down. One chap asking, he says, I've got no transport, but I live in Wolverhampton. I would love to do it. Not George C, one of the other... well, somebody who's put something on there saying you live in Wolverhampton, can't get up there. Might I suggest you use this Eurosport forum, as it is a general cycling forum, if you wish to liaise with other riders who have transport to get to Brian Rourke's Cat and Fiddle Run. Why don't you do that and put your details here, and then maybe somewhere you can get in touch with email addresses, and you can share transport. Look, it's a bike run. We don't want too many cars up there. That'd be fantastic. Good descending by Paolo Bettini, though. Not afraid of going downhill quickly is Bettini.
No, he's certainly not. We've seen him, a number of occasions do this, and it's a bit technical there for a while. Quite a lot of tight corners. So the advantage for him there, he'll be able to hold the bunch off for a bit. But again, the bunch, is just going at a very fast rate behind, and even just a handful of seconds. So for him to hold on, still outside of 5 kilometers to go, it's going to be an impossible task for him.
Very high speed being indicated on the our little virtual speedometer. 6k to go. Around 60k is what they're estimating. Sounds possibly a little bit high, but you never know. He's really giving it everything, and it's strung everybody out behind as they're trying to get back on the pace, beginning to regroup, but a very long line of riders off the back of that small group. Well, this will be interesting. Now, I wonder, Sean, whether this is a tactic to perhaps get everybody else to do the work to bring Tom Boonen to the line.
Well, it's not the tactic that you would expect from him for Tom Boonen, because Boonen is going to be sitting here in this main bunch, and Bettini would be one of the riders who would be very important to look after Boonen here in the last number of kilometres. So for him to go out front, I don't think there's any advantage to make the Fassa Bortola team to work. For example, they're just just rolling on the front here, and they're not really doing all the work. We see the Team Oba riders coming, so they're allowing other teams once again to do the work, and they will take over in the last 2, 3 kilometres, 4 kilometres to the finish. So Bettini, I think he's just wasting energy really out at this moment.
5 kilometres to go then, and Paolo Bettini's meagre handful of seconds being eaten up by T-Mobile now, who are on the front, dragging him back, and it's all got to be over very, very quickly. All the motorcycles are going past Bettini on his left-hand shoulder, and he'll know that the peloton is there. There we are, he's sat up. That's the end of his little escape. Nice to see him on the attack, though. I wonder how Tom Boonen will be feeling about that. He could do with the support to bring him to the line.
And I'm not sure if the director of Sportive from the Quick Step will be, be jumping up and down about that effort from Bettini, because, as I said, it would be, better to use his energy and concentrate on keeping Boonen to the front and stay close to him. And if he needs to be moved up in the last kilometres, to be there to do that job, and where going out in front like that, I think it's, just a waste of energy effort, really.
Bit of a waste of time then. Read it a little bit wrong. What is the director sportive going to be saying down his earpiece, though? I mean, they're all wired up for, as David Duffield says, they're wired for sound these days, and surely the Quick-Step director is shouting down the ear of Bettini saying, slow up, slow up.
Well, I think when Bettini, when he goes out there and he makes the effort, well, at that point, the damage is already done, and he's way down the road, and he is, as we see, a handful of seconds. So he just gave that number of kilometres out there. But I think tonight he will be saying to him, look, it would be better to concentrate on Tom more and just stay close to him. And we see him now after his effort, he comes back in the bunch, and he's gone back, to the rear of the bunch. And when you can attack like Bettini, did on that climb there, you're capable of staying up the front, and he can do that. He can, he can keep the position up in the top 20-25 riders, and that's where he needs to be at this moment, and stay around Boonen, and hopefully that he could do something for him in the final kilometres.
Yeah, Bettini going straight to the back, having a discussion with Andrea Perron of CSC, who's incidentally signed another contract with CSC. He'll be staying that. Andrea Perron will see out his riding career, I would suggest, at CSC. Still, the work being done on the front by T-Mobile to drag everything along. The pace is pretty high now. They're inside the last 3 kilometres, and everybody will now start to be jostled to get towards the front to where they want to be. Still T-Mobile working. Eric Zabel wanting to do the damage today. 2/3 so far. Would dearly, dearly love a win, and way off the pace for the points competition, not even in the top 5 at the moment. Remember, 3 of them just being all-rounders, shall we say. Bradley McGee, Roberto Heras in there as well, and Denis Menchov. And the 2 sprinters he has to worry about, Alessandro Patacchi and Tor Uzov, way up the road in terms of points. Erik Zabel here just for the stage wins now, Sean.
Yes, well, of course, a stage win would be, you know, I think very important for Zabel, because in view of the World Championships coming up, we see Zabel, like last year, he did, you know, a magnificent performance in the Worlds, finishing second. So again, like, he's going to, you know, need a stage victory here, and if he could get that, I think it would do a huge morale boost for him, and you know, for the World Championships, he needs that, because he hasn't been racing. Of course, this year not participating in the Tour of France. A victory in this race would, you know, mean an awful lot for himself, and also for the German team as they go into the Worlds.
Yes, absolutely, pitting himself up against two of the top sprinters in the world, Thor Hushovd and Alessandro Petacchi. Really needs to show himself that he has the ability to do what he knows deep down he can do and challenge at the World Championships. His T-Mobile squad, though, now off the front, and just looking down on there, it's difficult to see in the shadows. I think he's lying in third place at the moment, Erik Zabel. Just sitting in there in the pink jersey with the white stripe saying T-Mobile in the middle. And other riders now coming up towards the front. Well, let's see who is liable to be challenging today, apart from Petacchi. He only has two lead-out men today. Tom Steels, the Belgian from the Vitamon Lotto, could be in with a chance. Martin Perdigueo, he can sprint as well. There's some good riders in there. Zanotti from Liquigas Calcagni is in there. Ventuso from Sonia de Val be up for it, but this looks like it's going to be led out for Tom Steels at the moment. Tom Steels in third place in the yellow helmet in the De Vitamon colours, being led towards the line. Now I think it's once again, it's one of the quick step lights. Tom Boonen gone from the front again. No, it's Max van Heeswijk. I think that's Van Heeswijk who's gone from the front, and Tom Steels is right behind him, and Erik Zabel's right behind that. Is that big Magnus Backstedt behind them as well? Zabel's going to go for it. He's going to outstrip Tom Steels, but I don't think he's got the legs to take Van Heeswijk. I'm sure that's Van Heeswijk who's taken a victory. It is Max Van Heeswijk takes victory today from Erik Zabel. Alessandro Petacchi in there as well. Well, he really is on super form. 2 stage wins in the Tour of the Benelux. It's taken a long time for him to come back to form, but that shows he's a very fast man for a big man, Sean, because taking on Erik Zabel, Zabel not making much headway in the end.
No, certainly not. When Van Heeswijk went there after, we see Leo Van Bon was on the front actually, and he pulled off that little bit too early. But when Van Heeswijk went, as we see here, with Steels in the wheel, you know, very strong, and Steels started to make an impression on him in the beginning, but then just faded, and you know.
You are watching Luis Pasamontes, the teammate of Javier Florencio. Florencio out on such a long break for such a long time. The peloton has now swept up past those 3 men. He was with Angel Gomez and Bart Dox. Under 15 kilometers to go, and a little counter coming off the front of the peloton from Pasamontes. Still out by himself, but going nowhere. He will be swept up by the sprinters teams without a shadow of a doubt, but gets a little bit more sponsorship coverage for Relax Fuerteventura. And today's been a relatively easy day for the favourites and for the sprinters, of course. The wind has been from behind them, and it's a very fast pace. It started off quite fairly slow compared to what they have been in the last few days. 43 kilometers an hour for the first 2 hours, but it's Now sped up as they come under the 10-kilometer banner. But still, with this tailwind pushing them along, it's going to be a very fast stage. And everybody now just coming towards the front and trying to drag things along and get their guys up towards the front and keep them out of trouble, Sean.
Yes, well, now is the time that the sprinters, of course, and their teams, they have to be to the front inside the last 10 Ks. And of course, the general classement riders, they've got to stay up as well, because you know, they don't want to be too far back in the bunch. And if you go back and there's a gap up here, and you can lose, you know, some valuable seconds. So it's a difficult moment for all the riders. But as you said, it's been, you know, an easy day for everybody in the bunch. And I think you know, the main general classement riders will be very happy with this day, because tomorrow at the time trial 48k is a very big day for them. So I think it's very important that they get this easy day, because as we said, if it had been blowing a lot of wind and it could have been a side wind, well, echelons, there could be a lot of suffering out there today. So a perfect situation for those riders who you know, will be taking the time trial really 100% seriously tomorrow.
9 kilometers to go then. Yep, nice easy day for people. There'll be a lot of tired legs in the peloton. We've already mentioned we've had several stages over 200 kilometers already, the longest one being 232.3 kilometers. Flying really in the face of what the Vuelta have done in the last few years and keeping their stages fairly short. They've mixed in a few long ones at the beginning of the race, and a lot of very, very tired riders. 232 kilometers was stage 4. We've had 189 kilometers, 212 kilometers. There's another 200-kilometer ride to come on stage 10. It's quite a difficult first 10 days or so of the Vuelta. And it was extremely hot last week, well up in the high 30s and into almost 40 degrees, which was extremely hot across the semi-desert plains of central Spain, especially through Castilla-La Mancha was extremely hot. The temperatures come down a little bit now, and you can see from our pictures that it's still very, very bright and sunny. The tailwind coming in, a little counter-attack coming off the front on the left-hand side of your screen, and the sprinters teams will have to try and make sure they can cover that. 4 riders just going away. One of them, I think, was a relaxed rider. Somebody from Credit Agricole being sent up there to just police things. In fact, 2 relaxed riders gone away. One of Pasamontes is being caught. So obviously the team tactic for relax today is fire one after another off the front. Keep your sponsor up there as long as possible.
Well, of course, the teams that, you know, haven't got a sprinter, and the relaxed team, they haven't got anybody who's capable of really, you know, having any shout here in this final sprint. So that's all they can do, you know, 5 riders off the front and you know, try and get away. But it's always you know, impossible really to stay away here. And they're, you know, they know that, but at least they're getting some exposure, they're getting some airtime, and that's what they're here for, really, to get some you know, exposure for their sponsors.
Well, there we are. Right into that tuck straight away. The rider from Relax. There's a Credit Agricole rider behind him, which is interesting, as Uzov to be looking for sprint points. Just trying to drag him back. I think Cofidis are also in there, and Lampre have a rider just off the head of the peloton. Looking at Moto 1. Thankfully, the pictures are a little bit better than they have been. Freddie Gonzalez is the rider. Freddie Gonzalez, Gonzalez actually, we should say, because he's Colombian. And in South America, for those, I'm not saying my pronunciation is particularly good, but in South America, the Z gets pronounced as a Z, Gonzalez, as opposed to Castilian Spanish. I'm sure my Spanish colleague back in British Eurosport will tick me off something terrible for awful pronunciation, but South American Spanish has the Z at the end, Gonzalez. He's a last-minute call-up for Relax Fuerteventura. So he's now doing his bit, the little Colombian. Entering the town of Lloret de Mar now. This is the outskirts. Remember, there's a 6.7-kilometer loop, so we're well into this loop now. And as we run in towards the end, we come back down this dual carriageway, this very big road they're coming down now. They narrow it to half, and then they swing right for about 1 kilometer or so until we get to the 1K mark. And then at just after 1 kilometer, there's a nasty little, well, looks like a nasty little right-hander Now, for a big bunch, if they arrive there at speed at the roundabout, it could be a little bit difficult. We shall have to see what happens there. And then another 500 meters and another right-hander of 90 degrees running up to the finish then. So not a completely straightforward run-in. We'll just have to see how well Fassa Bortolo can police it. Presuming that the train gets disrupted, the Fassa train gets disrupted, Sean, I mean, which riders are likely to benefit from this sort of situation? Who could sprint in these sort of, I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants situations? Uzov's quite good at that sort of thing. We've seen other guys like Max van Heeswijk yesterday taking advantage of odd situations. There's a number of riders who could take advantage of a little disruption in the Fassa Bortolo train, and who are those likely to be, do you think?
Well, I think, the sprinters, as you said, Hushovd is one of them, of course, and the riders, who've been up there in the last couple of days, and they know in their heart and soul that it's, really difficult to beat Pataki if he gets the perfect lead out, and the Fassa Bortolo team can stay in block on the front in the final 3 kilometres and take him into that last 150, 200 metres to the line. Then it's almost impossible to beat Pataki. So they will be hoping in some of these corners, as we mentioned, with 2Ks to go, and then with less about 500 metres to go. That there will be some problems arise, and if you're in the right position, and it's just a matter of luck really, you stay up there in the top 10 riders, and hopefully you're in the position that doesn't get obstructed, and then you can find yourself in a perfect position, like Van Heeswijk yesterday, for example.
Well, looking down on the beach at Lloret de Mar. They are now well within inside this loop of 6.7 kilometers they had to do. 4K to go then, and riders beginning to jostle towards the front. Let's have a think about who we're looking out for today. Alessandro Pataki is the obvious choice if his train gets the position and can lead him out. But as we say, there's a couple of dodgy right-hand corners as they come in. Look out for Calcagni or Marco Zanotti, or even big Magnus Backstedt if he's feeling a little bit better. For Liquigas, Martin Perdigueo, he can sprint if he wants to get it into it. He's the sort of rider who could go on a counter-attack as well if he wants, before anything else. Some of the other sprinters who really want to go for it. Well, there he are. Look, Perdigueo. What do we say? Perdigueo trying to get away with 3 or 4 kilometers to go. And we did say there's a possibility of somebody trying to make it away, Sean, of that sort of ilk. Fletcher, Perdigueo, Garcia Costa, one of those sort of riders. That's not a bad little move. He's putting in a big dig at the front, isn't he? He's really trying hard to get away.
Yes, well, at this moment, you really have to go hard, because just to pull out the gap, you have to make, a huge effort, and then, just try and hold on to that advantage. But, when you go in a sprint, as we see Perdigueo doing there, he sprints off the front, but then when you get that gap of 25 metres, 30 metres, to hold that is the major difficulty for a rider when you have a bunch coming down, breathing down your neck, and the Fassa Bortolo team, as we can see now, quite a number on the front at the moment.
Perdigueo, who won the Classico San Sebastian last year in the colours of Sonia de Val, now riding for Phonak, really digging deep to try and maintain this gap over the fast-moving Fassa Bortolo train behind. This was the only other option to a sprint, that somebody would try and nip off the front. Of course, if the Fassa guys shut Perdigueo down a little bit, or shut him down completely as they're going to do now, and just slacken the pace at all, somebody else will nip off the front, Shawners, and they'll see their opportunity if the pace slackens at all.
Yes, well, of course, the Fassa riders, when we see the number on the front there, they're just going to close that one down slowly, as they're just, about to catch him now. They don't just go after them and make a sprint to close it down, because they're back in the same situation where other riders will attack. So they just take him back slowly, keep the pace very high, as they're doing exactly at this moment.
Under 2 kilometers to go then. Remember, this is a very narrow section as they swing right. When we get to 1 kilometer, they'll swing right again on a narrow roundabout section, then 500 meters and another right-hand turn of about 90 degrees. The guys will be absolutely storming at the run. Lorenzo Bernucci, the winner at Nancy in the Tour de France, giving it everything. trying to drag Alessandro Petacchi along. Fabio Sacchi is in there as well. Pimenta Tossato. Marco Velo will be the last man in line. He's just in front of Alessandro Petacchi. You can see Eric Zabel sitting in there as well. On the wheel of Alessandro Petacchi. He knows where he needs to be. Where is Tom Bonen? He'll be not far behind. You could see the gold helmet of Paolo Bettini just in front of Bonen, and I wonder if he, as Sean suggested, had a quiet word said to him by the director sportif of a Quick Step yesterday for giving in an attack. But he's certainly there supporting Tom Bonen today. 1 kilometre to go. Right, here we go. Remember, there's 2 right-handers to take in here before they get there, and it's being disrupted a little bit by the front. There's a couple of Credit Agricole riders in there as well. Tor Uzov's in the blue jersey. There's a very steep turn. They can't hit it too fast. Oh, what a couple of riders have. There's Leon Van Bon, I think, was the rider there, who had just swung a bit too wide, but all good for Petacchi at the moment. Where is the blue jersey of Tor Uzov? He'll be in there somewhere. We just can't quite see him from overhead. Well, Credit Agricole. There is Tor Uzov, 3 back, just behind Alessandro Petacchi. And then we have, he's just in front of Petacchi, in fact. You can see Eric Zabel in there as well, and Tom Bonen. That's that last 500-meter turn. Here we come again, Marco Velo giving it everything he can. Petacchi is still waiting, Bettini is in there. Bonen is winding up behind Eric Zabel. Now goes Petacchi. Petacchi against Tor Uzov. Zabel's giving it everything he can. Bettini's mixing it up in there as well. It's a Uzov and Petacchi sprint. Petacchi's going to take it from Tor Uzov, then Paolo Bettini, I think, who takes 3rd place. René Hasselbacher, I think, was the rider from Gerolsteiner. Not quite sure. Could be the young Australo-German chap who had such a good, Halzuk, I think his name is, who had such a good run in yesterday to 11th. But Petacchi showing amazing strength. It was a straight, clean fight between himself and Tor Uzov, and in the end just out-dragged to the line. Great little run-in by Paolo Bettini as well. So Alessandro Petacchi taking his 3rd stage victory of this year's Vuelta from the big Norwegian. Let's have a look at it again. Side by side, Sean and Bettini doing very well to keep up there. Bonen giving up at this point. Roberto Heras starting on his way, seeing how much he can, I guess it would be fair to say, how much he can limit his losses against some of the stronger time trialists. And this man in particular, he'll be particularly concerned about. Denis Menchov, a very good time trialist. Out on the road ahead of him. Just a 12-second deficit, and he may be wearing gold tonight. Who knows? We'll take a short commercial break. All the men are on the road now. Roberto Heras is behind this man, and there he is now. And Heras doing a pretty quick time trial as well so far. The question is, have they gone off a little bit too early? In the early stages, Ruben Plata, Carlos Sastre, Francisco Mancebo, all having very good times indeed. But other riders like Leif Hosta, André Perron, and so on went off quite quickly and faded towards the end. Ruben Plata coming in, and this man can really time trial. Was 7th last year. This is a good time. This is going to be the fastest time by quite some margin. Nearly 2 minutes going to be knocked off, I would think. Just about a minute. Look at that. Wonderful stuff, even more so. 1 minute 2 seconds 30 was Victor Hugo Peña. 1:01 though 3. 1 minute and 27 seconds faster for Ruben Plata. Remember, a very good rider, 7th fastest last year. Oh, look at this. Look at this. This is terrific stuff. Now, how close is he going to get to Santos Gonzalez time? Is he going to work up into the top 3? What a ride by this young man. This really is terrific stuff. A lot of faith has been put in this man as a potential future champion. Is he going to make it to second? He is. 1 minute and 7 seconds down. That's a wonderful ride by this young man. His first real Grand Tour as a contender. Remember, he was there to support Salvoldelli in the Giro and just learning. What a fantastic ride, Sean.
Yes, that's a great ride by Danielson, and it's you know, it's interesting to see, you know, how we will fit this tour, because there's a lot of talk about him. And of course, Lance Armstrong have talked about him, that, you know, he's a future big tour winner, and this will be his, you know, really big taste now. And putting in a time through like this, he's going to be up there in the general classement, so he's got everything to ride for. So it will be interesting in the next 2 weeks to see how well they will perform in the mountain stages.
Certainly in the first of the mountaintop finishes, he was one of the riders who attacked early on, and even further back in this Vuelta, right at the beginning when we had our first little dig, and a lot of favourites went away, including Roberto Heras and Santiago Botero, and Tom Danielson was in that little group, esteemed group of about 12 riders who gave an attack on stage 3. Stage 2, I beg your pardon. Fastest so far, Denis Menchov. And really looking very good indeed. 9 seconds faster now than Ruben Plata. Do you think he can keep up this pace to the end, Sean?
Well, that is the big question, and you know, it's impossible to know how much he's you know, thrown in the first half of it. If he's, you know, really gave it a lot, he could pay in the end. And we've seen in time trials, you know, they go out very fast, and the first 50%, the first 60% of the time trial, they can be doing a great performance. But in the last kilometres, even the last 5 or 10 kilometres, if you start to you know, weaken at all, well, then you can lose time, and that could be a position for Menchov here, because you know, Plaza, I think the time he threw in was a very interesting one. So just interesting time if he can just hold on or build on that advantage he has at the moment, Menchov.
Here's another rider who's very much quotes on the rivet, right at the front of his saddle, which is incidentally where the term comes from. The rivets big copper rivets used to be at the front of the saddle. On the rivet, and sitting right on the peak of that saddle, Francisco Mancebo. Here's Michele Scarponi. It's a good time by him too. Scarponi, another good time trialist. He's a good all-rounder, this man. Brought to Liberty Seguros to support people like Roberto Heras. But I wonder if he could be a contender in his own right at one point. As he can time trial, as we can see here, and he's a very, very good climber. Last off the train in the climbs. 9th fastest for Scarponi. Well, time trials all over the place in the last couple of days. Time trialing in the Tour of Britain yesterday. Nick Noyens winning there, and Michael Blautzen, the real loser. Looks like Nick Noyens is riding into his big victory in the Tour of Britain today. Well, that's Denis Menchov going past Joaquim Rodriguez. Remember, up the road still is Carlos Sastre, so Rodriguez being passed by Sastre and Menchov. I don't think he'd be too worried about that. He's now been caught for 4 minutes by this man. Just shows how quickly he's going. Big time trial today in the Tour de l'Avenir as well, the Tour of Youth, Tour of the Future as they call it. Brad Wiggins and Steve Cummins, they're the two big hopefuls for Great Britain. Whee! Just go through the middle there, boy. It's the safest thing to do if you're overshooting the corner. He's really trying everything to stay in there. Brad Wiggins lying 104th overall. Steve Cummins 117th overall. Philip Degnan, the Irishman, in right smack in the middle at 108th. But Mark Scanlon lying 2nd overall in the Tour de l'Avenir, and we wish him well in the time trial today. Let's hope Brad and Steve can pull something out the bag, because I think they probably need it today at the Tour de l'Avenir. Menchov fastest, 9 seconds faster than Ruben Plata. Sastre at 24, Francisco Mancebo at 40, as well as Roberto Heras, so not too bad a loss from Roberto Heras. We'll go back to the Tour de l'Avenir and some of the Irish riders after another short break. Denis Menchov on his way to fastest time today so far. He's got to eclipse Ruben Plata. He's done so by about 9 seconds so far. This is what the overall classification would look like if it stays as it is. Menchov 28 seconds in advance of Heras. That's a lot less than I expected that gap to be. Carlos Garcia Quesada, 10th fastest, 1:02.56.6, 1 minute and 53 seconds down for this big man from Comunicat Valenciana. They've had some good results today, as have Fonac, 3 in the top 5 at the moment. There's the gap between Menchov and Heras, 44 seconds, and as I say, it's pleasing to see it's such a slim gap. I think Menchov would have wanted to eat up a little bit more time than that. Well, interestingly, we were commenting earlier about Roberto Heras taking the short way, i.e. through the cones on the descent, and not on the left-hand side of the road as everything else. We've had a bit of a dig into that because we were wondering about it. And in fact, there was a decision made by the commissars this morning, or the jury this morning, saying that all riders must stay on the left-hand side of the road. Regular traffic goes on the right-hand side of the road, and anybody straying away from that, i.e. going through the cones and using both sides of the road, would be subject, possibly, to a time penalty if any other team complained. Well, interestingly, we've seen Roberto Heras consistently going through the cones, and I wonder if anybody will complain. He could be in line for a bit of a punishment, Sean. That's surely that's not what anybody would want to see.
No, certainly not. And but if it's something which the commissars, aired this morning to the director of sportives, well then the riders should be aware of that. And we see Heras, going between the cones and going to the side of the road where it's open for general traffic. He could certainly get a penalty, and it's not only on the descent there. So we see one time he came into a corner and he had to let it run on. I don't think the commissars would have any objection there, but on the climb also he was cutting the corners and going the shortest way possible, and he could be in for for a warning and possibly for a time penalty.
Francisco Mancebo coming in to record a time. I just have to wonder, Sean, then, how much of an advantage that is. I mean, it has to be seconds advantage if you're cutting a corner, if you're taking the shortest line, the racing line, as they say, up and down a hill, and the person in front of you, Denis Menchov, in this case, is taking the correct line. You're talking about tenths in descending terms, maybe you're talking about seconds in climbing terms.
Yes, well, of course, on the climb it's the shortest way, and you have the advantage, and if you do run the descent as well. But I don't think on the fast points, Heras was really doing it. It was just on the uphill. But certainly there is a time advantage there, and just how much is very difficult to calculate.
Well, maybe that has a contributing factor. Second fastest time, though, so far for Francisco Mancebo. He's left the best till last, Mancebo, in his quest to keep up in the general classification. Good time, Mancebo, who was 5th fastest at the first checkpoint. And again, 5th fastest at the second checkpoint, and then at 35.6 kilometers, 4th fastest. He's now turned on the gas as we get back up the coast road and has taken 2nd fastest time, taken that away from Tom Danielson. No disrespect to Mancebo for his time, but a great time by Danielson. Really throwing in a good one there. So Mancebo going 2nd fastest. This man is the fastest man on the road, though, at the moment, and not that many more to come in now before we see this time. Just Carlos Sastre, David Blanco, Joaquim Rodriguez, Menchov and Heras to still finish. 45 seconds the gap, and he's limiting his losses, and we've just been talking about him taking the shorter route. I just wonder how many seconds that's saved Heras. Maybe as many as 10 seconds, who knows? Just don't know. I wonder whether there will be any complaints against Heras's riding style. We shall have to see. We'll keep you up to date with that. If you like this race as much as I do, there is a terrific coffee table book coming out at we hope, sort of provisionally in the middle of October, called Viva La Vuelta, a history of the Tour of Spain, published by Sport and Publicity and Mousehold Press. It's going to retail for about $15.95, we think. But having read the proofs, it's a terrific book. It's not just about the race, it's about the architecture, about the culture, and a tremendous amount of history in it as well, because the political history of Spain, as we know, it came out of a long period under Franco, the end of the 1970s, And all the way through that period this race ran, but it had a tremendous effect on the race, Spain's political and cultural history. It's a wonderful book, and if you like this race, I heartily recommend it. There aren't many books, I would say, go out and buy straight away, but I think that this is a really exceptional book in terms of cycling history. It really is fantastically good. Also a new biography of Alan Piper coming out as well, ironically published by the same people, Sport and Publicity. Well, that very, very good as well. A Piper's Tale it's called, and again I've read some proofs of that. He doesn't pull his punches. Anybody who knows Alan Piper, he's a straight-talking Aussie. He's a pretty straight-writing Aussie as well, written with Chris Sidwell's. And a very good read and a very enlightening document into life in the professional peloton during his professional career and into the man himself. So Viva La Vuelta, history of the Tour of Spain, and A Piper's Tale out in October. If you like this race as much as I do, read Viva La Vuelta. David Blanco, fifth this morning. Another good time. They have put in some good times, haven't they, this Comunica Valenciana squad, Sean? They've been consistently up there in this time trial.
Yes, they certainly have. You know, we've seen quite a number of riders throwing in some good times here, and of course that will keep them up there for the general classement. And it's important to do that, because if they're going to perform well over the next 2 weeks, you know, to stay up there in contention, it's very important today. And if they, you know, have a good finish of the race, and we've seen that before, some riders, they come good really in the last week, the last 10 days of the race, and putting in some super forms. So I suppose they're just working towards that, and hopefully some of those riders, and Vincent Belda is, you know, telling the riders to go out there and just give it everything today.
Francisco Mancebo, second fastest in the clubhouse, and that'll do him no harm at all. He was sixth this morning. He will leapfrog over David Blanco and Joaquim Rodriguez, moving up into the top four. Depends how quickly Carlos Sastre comes in as to whether he can make it into the top three. Menchov is the fastest on the road. How much has Sastre left towards the end? It does seem that the CSC boys' general philosophy is don't go out too hard in the first half and then really motor in the second half. So maybe Sastre's going to pull it out of the bag and keep in third place. Mancebo in that case will go up to fourth, I would suggest. Ruben Plata is the man who has really benefited today. Started 28th on the general classification, but his fastest time so far, 1 minute 1 second 0.3, 1 minute 1:01:03. He's going to move him well up from 28th spot overall. Good on him. Not a super climber, but can climb. Here comes Carlos Sastre though with 1 kilometer to go. It's a pretty fast time for the man from CSC, Sean.
Yes, and the interesting thing is to see you know, what position he can take here. Manchego, of course, he did a 1:01:31. So for Sastre, it looks like that he's not going to finish ahead of Manchego.
The deficit between the two was 19 seconds, so that's what he has to maintain, that gap. So he's basically got to come in at 1:01:50 to maintain his place above Mancebo in the general classification. Well, it's going to be nip and tuck, this one. Look, I think he might do it, you know, Sean. I think he might just stay ahead of Mancebo on GC. It's around about 1:01:50 he has to do. I haven't done the complete maths, but there we go. Well, he's comfortably inside, I think, so he's going to stay in third place. Mancebo will end up in fourth. Good time for Carlos Sastre, good riding by him. Denis Menchov, though, really motoring. He's almost caught Carlos Sastre. He's inside the last kilometre. 43 seconds his gap. Great riding by this big Russian rider today. He's been going well all day, hasn't he, Sean?
Yes, he certainly has, you know, been very throwing the performance right from the start. He's, you know, kept it up, and of course the opportunity for him today to take this jersey and stay up, and you know, in the the interviews we read today, and he said that this is my opportunity. He said, I'm not going to spare anything, I'm going to give it 100% because to take the jersey, it's very important, and then if I do that, he said, we'll see how long I can hold on.
He's going to hold on today. There's nobody going to challenge this. Well, I don't know. It's how far away is he from the line at the moment? Fading in the last 3 or 4 kilometers. He has given it everything. Ruben Plata, 1:01.03. Is he going to make it? I think he is, but only just. Oh, 9 seconds. 9 seconds. He maintained that gap for the last 10K. He knows he's done it. He's a happy man, and he knows he's got the gold jersey as well. We've seen some great racing by Denis Menchov. 19th he was in San Sebastian just before he came here, so showing his good form. Had a terrible Tour de France, really. 85th in the Tour de France. Although he'd had a very good season slightly earlier. He was 3rd in the Tour of Romandy. And placed well on some stages there. He always races in the Vuelta País Vasco, the Tour of the Basque Country. 86th fastest for Joaquim Rodriguez today. He's a climber, explosive little climber. He won't worry about that too much. And Criterium International, certainly when he was up against the clock, 7th fastest. So he's a good time trialist, but he's really shown his class today. Taking the time trial by the scruff of the neck and shaking it about. And this man pulling out every trick and a few other ones in the book to try and hang on to as many seconds as possible. Roberto Heras is going to finish the day somewhere within the top 4 or 5. Ruben Plata is 2nd at the moment. Mancebo is 4th. Remember, they're just putting up the Spanish riders up against Menchov at the moment. Sastre down to 5th. Then Danielson is 6th. Well, he's come inside Tom Danielson's time, below Sastre, below Mancebo. Roberto Heras will lose that gold jersey today, and Denis Menchov. It's the big one. This is stage 10. It's taken all those days to get here, but we are now in the Pyrenees, running up into Andorra. Want to do 4 climbs today, 2 first category climbs. We are just going on the descent of the Col de Montuep. We are now beginning the rise up to the ski station at Dornio Arcalis in Andorra. They are already in Andorra. It's been a story of breakaways being brought back and a battle for the mountains classification today. These three men are going for glory, though. If they can get to the foot. Oh, Aitor Osa, that is at the front. I was just going to say who it was, and Aitor Osa has overcooked it, hitting the Armco barrier. The other two riders who were with him were Rick Verbrugge and Adolfo Garcia Quesada, who we haven't seen much of. We've seen a lot of Carlos, but here we go, overcooking it. Aitor Osa just slipping away from him. They're really trying to get as much advantage on the chasing pack as they can. There's a number of riders, but trying to bear down on them. Some very good climbers, and that's why they're trying to get away. Osa, a particularly good climber in his own right. Oh dear, that's very difficult for him. He's going to have to wait for, well, he has got a car right behind him. Shouldn't be too bad to get onto the back. Another Ilis Balears rider behind, number 24. This is in the chasing group, including Perdiguelo, as you could see there. That is Juan Horach. It's a long time since we've seen anything of him. We saw him in the first week. A whole number of riders, including Oscar Sevilla, Juan Macamecado, Carlos Garcia Quesada, Eladio Jimenez, the leader of the mountains classification, are all in there. This is the corner that Aitor Osa just came to grief at. And oh, there we are. I think that is Aitor Osa still having some treatment and having a bit, well, having a look at from the team car. This is all very, very ragged, Sean, isn't it? Everybody trying to make it across and get there first before they make this break up to the ski station today.
Yes, of course. Well, we're into the part of the race where it's very interesting, and we see the riders here. They're not comfortable on the descent, and that tells you it is slippery here. And we see also there the way he slid off, and he fell very heavily. And we see him with the car there. It's not good that he's gone to the car for the moment, and he could have hurt himself quite badly, because normally the reaction is when you fall, you get back on your bike, and if there's a mechanical problem, well, you take a spare bike from the team car. But he seems to be beside the team car for a moment. Is not looking good. Not looking good at all for Aitor Osa. These are the two guys who were with him, Rick Verbrugge and Adolfo Garcia Quesada. Verbrugge, of course, from Quickstep. Adolfo Garcia Quesada from Comunicar Valenciana. And both of these two descending quite well, but they were a little bit wary a bit further back. We saw Rick Verbrugge just trying to take the corner and running a little bit too hard into it, as they would say in motor racing terms, a bit too hot into the corner. Well, today has been a battle in the early stages of the race between Joaquin Rodriguez of Sonia Deval and Eladio Jimenez of Comunicar Valenciana, battling for that mountains classification journey. Eladio Jimenez was the man who was wearing the jersey this morning when they started off. We haven't had confirmation of the very last climb that they went over the top of yet. But certainly, by the time they'd gone over the first two climbs of the day, Joaquin Rodriguez had cut the 10 points lead that Eladio Jimenez had down to 3 points. Oh, they're really pushing it, Sean, aren't they? Even on a wide road like this, they're really going for it as much as they can. Yes, well, they do not seem to be going at 100% full out, but they are leaving it run very much out in the corners, and that will tell you that it is a little bit slippery there, and the riders can feel that, as we see. Yes, that doesn't look good, does it? That looks a collarbone-ish to me. As soon as you have your arm in that sort of... Yes, it certainly is. He's holding it there. I know the feeling. Oh, yes, indeed. It has affected you in your past, hasn't it? And this is, sometimes, we were talking about this the other day, sometimes the breaks can be not very painful, sometimes they can be extremely painful, but it's a terminal case if this happens, isn't it? Yes, well, it certainly is, and as we were talking, sometimes, it can hurt so much, and other times, you don't know if you're broken or not until you get the x-ray, but, Osa fell quite heavily here. We see the way he slid it out, and he went down right on the shoulder, and, he smacked, you can see there, smacked the shoulder off the road, and that's where you can just really snap the collarbone. Yeah, well, I've got a feeling he might have run into a post on that Armco barrier. It looks about the right spacing for me. It's a shame we haven't got a different angle for that shot.
Well, that's the only angle we're going to get because it's a motorcycle camera, but I've got a feeling that he might have run into a post, Sean, because that seems about the right spacing between Armco barrier posts for that to happen. That's very, very bad luck for Osa. Took his chance. He's a very good climber. He was trying to get to the foot of the last climb of the day, the outer category, the Especial, as they call them here, Ordino Arcales, which is in, we are now in Andorra. We've been in Andorra for quite some while. But these two still out ahead. Now, what are we going to see from these two? Well, unless Vincenti Ibelda has changed his tack over the last few years, they're certainly throw riders up this mountain as one after another if these two get caught. But Adolfo Garcia Quesada not going to do an awful lot of the work, is he, Sean? He's got two men behind him. Carlos, his brother, is behind him, and also the mountains classification leader Elidio Jimenez was also in that group as well, chasing them down at about 1:38. What will be the tactic for this man here?
Well, I think yes, the tactic, as I said, he's not going to be doing too much, and we can see him here. He seems to be, you know, prepared to leave Verbruggen do all the riding, and the reason being, of course, as you said, he had riders coming up behind, and the chasing group has, you know, two teammates, so he's definitely going to, you know, hold on and leave Verbruggen do all the pace setting, all the pulling here on the front.
Well, Rick Verbruggen flicks the elbow out to try and get Adolfo to come and do some work. Well, he's gone to the front for a little bit, but he's not going to be pushing the pace very hard. There's no doubt about that. And Verbruggen may have to make his own decision about what he wants to do. Here is the chasing group. We saw Juan Horach in there. There he is, just going through. There is Juan Mercado. There is Carlos Garcia Quesada, Oscar Sevilla. Well, that's a good move for Oscar Sevilla, Sean, because not the best of days yesterday, and he needs to drag back some time. He's quite a long way back now.
Yeah, certainly it's a good move by Sevilla, because he's lost time on the first mountaintop finish, and yesterday, you know, he lost a bit of time as well, not the greatest of time trials, so he has a possibility for him to pull back time, and he's going to be allowed that little bit of freedom because he's that further back on the general classement, as you said.
Well, just as we were talking about what Adolfo was going to do, Rick Verbruggen has got the nod that he has to go and do something himself, because Adolfo is not going to do anything for him at all. He's going to wait for the other two guys in his team to come up to him. That means there'll be three in that little group, and that's quite a handy number to have. All three of them can climb, and Verbruggen really going to have to go for it himself. It's a long, long way he can climb. Is this too much for a man like Rick Verbruggen, Sean?
Well, I think he can, you know, hold off, but of course this group behind, we haven't seen the time check for a little while now, so depending on what distance they are down, but I reckon it's quite close. It's maybe 30-40 seconds of a gap, so it's going to be difficult for him to hold out there.
Live pictures here then from stage 10. We are on the very foot slopes of the last climb of the day up to Tornio Arcales, the ski station in Andorra. The pace is really picking up behind the breakaway riders. Just confirmation of who took the points over the Colle de Monte. The last of the first category climbs today. Rick Verbruggen going over the top first, taking 16 points there. Aitor Osa second. Aitor Osa, sadly, we fear, out of the race now, having slipped off and crashed the Armco barrier descending that particular climb. Carlos Garcia Quesada. Joaquim Rodriguez takes 8 points. Eladio Jimenez takes 6. Now, that changes things in the mountains classification quite dramatically. Eladio Jimenez, who started the day on 32 points, a 10-point advantage over Joaquim Rodriguez, has lost that jersey by 1 point so far. Joaquim Rodriguez takes it back again. 54 plays 53, those two. But Rick Verbruggen going from 10 points up to 34 today. He's catapulted himself to third place in that mountains classification at the moment. There are 30 points available for the victor at the top of this climb today. 25 for second, 20 for third, 16, 12, 10, and so on down. 1 minute and 3 seconds. It's a big ask for this man, and he's still on the flat, Sean.
Yes, it is a big one, because you know, he's been out there for a while, and you know, he's not the greatest of climbers either. You know, he will suffer, and quite a long ways to go on this climb, and the most difficult to come. He's actually coming on to the difficult part of it now, and it's a long climb. You know, we see that it's I know there's part in the valley, but it's, you know, if you count that, it's almost 17 kilometers of a climb, but it's not that steep in the valley, but he's certainly coming into the steepest part now to hold on out there with that chasing group group of a lot of good climbers is going to be possible, and his gap, as we see, that is coming down all the time.
Tumbling down for Rick Verbrugge. He had to take his chance. He was with Adolfo Garcia Quesada, and he wasn't going to do a thing because he had two men coming up behind him, Carlos Garcia Quesada and Eladio Jimenez. The big question is, or the big priority, should we say, for Comunica Valenciana was to try and keep Eladio Jimenez as close to the mountains classification as possible. So Adolfo going back to help him out on this last climb of the day. Doesn't want to lose any more points to Joaquim Rodriguez as he possibly can. 5% is the average gradient for this climb up to the ski station at Tordino Arcalis, but it does rise to 8% after about 6k. And as Sean said, there's got this rolling section here, 1%, 3%, 2%. It just dips up and down the bottom of the valley. But then when they hit the slope, it catapults its way up to 7 and 8%. Really doesn't drop much below 7.5% all the way to the top until the last kilometre when it flattens out a little bit, Sean. 5%, and that's, we may see a sort of situation like we did the other day where anybody who loses out in the last kilometre or so could perhaps peg back as many losses as possible by just going for it on the last kilometre, because it's far less steep.
Yes, but the problem is when you come into the last kilometre, everybody is going to be after suffering quite a lot, and everybody's going to be tired, because we see once again the Liberty Securus riders here on the front of the bunch really starting to up the pace, and they're just going to up it all the time, and they're going to put so many riders under pressure and put a lot of riders out the rear door, as they say. So everybody will be hanging here, and when Heras takes over, of course, it's going to be really difficult for the other riders to hang on in there. And if he's in anything of the shape he was in at the other mountaintop finish we had a number of days ago, well, then he's going to blow a lot of the favourites out once again today.
He certainly is. Well, that man there, Juan Horach, at the back, he seems to be hanging a bit as well. Juan Miquel Mercado just in front of him. He's not doing too badly. Oscar Sevilla was suffering as well. Per de Guero is in there. Then you can see Joaquim Rodriguez. There is Joaquim Rodriguez. And I think the Liberty Seguros rider in there is Scarponi. Is that right, Sean?
Yes, Scarponi. Yes, he was. He's up there, and we'll talk about him the other day. Actually, he's quite a good rider. We see the work he did the other day for the mountaintop finish for Heras. He was the final rider of the Liberty Seguros with Heras, and he was really setting a blistering pace. And I think up here now at the moment, he's going to take it easy and just wait for Heras to come up and really just turn on the pace once again. And we see here the team are just controlling it from the Liberty Seguros team. So interesting to see exactly will they do the same as we did the other day. Here they seem to have slowed it down a bit, and maybe they're going to play the card up front that Scarponi is a rider who will win the stage if this group stay out in front. But of course the Bruggen's gap is coming down all the time. We see that around just over 40 seconds the advantage from the 8 chasers.
That's the 12 to go, Banner, and you can see that is the gap between the pursuers and the main favourites, 1:58, so just under 2 minutes. In there is Denis Menchov in the gold jersey. Roberto Heras and his Liberty Seguros team are right at the front. There's an awful lot of switchbacks in this climb. Remember, the first 2 or 3k, this is the official start, by the way. That's what they recognise at the start of this climb, 12 kilometres out. But I have to say it's a little bit more than that, because it goes up and down before we get to this point. This is when it constantly starts rising, a constant rising gradient.